clock on the wall tells us it's time for another episode of Learn, Teach, Lead, where we explore how educators, just like you, are using innovative instructional strategies, including how to leverage AI to improve teaching and learning.
Each week, we share real classroom stories, tools, and tips to help you save time, personalize instruction, and lead with confidence.
I'm Jeanine Nostrom, an elementary school principal.
And I'm Robyn D'Angelo, an elementary school teacher. Let's get started with today's Friday
Hey,
debrief.
here we are. I'm a little nervous, Robyn, I have to say.
We're
I'm
flipping
nervous.
the script today.
That's right. I'm nervous because it's my turn to be in the hot seat. But I'm also excited, of course, to talk about this topic. I think it's a great topic. It's an interesting topic. As you know, we're going to talk a little bit more about cultivating teacher leadership. And before we do that, why don't we share our fabulous moments of the week? I know there's a ton to pick from, but what's on your mind this week, Robyn, for your fabulous moment?
Well, my fabulous moment of the week had to deal with my students being leaders, talking about learn, teach, and lead. So taking it down to the classroom level of learning, teaching, and leading. We've been talking a lot about writing initiatives in our school, and looping with some of my students from 3rd to 4th grade. You know, it's been a really ongoing initiative that we've had to help students become better writers. But now that they're 4th graders, we've learned, we've taught, and now they had the chance to meet with another 3rd grade class in the school and lead them using personalized pathways that we talk about. So the students in 3rd grade came in with their writing piece, a personalized pathway that was given to them by the teacher who ran their data through AI, Magic Schools, and came up with glows and grows for them to improve their writing. My class is so used to doing that because a lot of the times that's how I give them their feedback of glows and grows from myself, or if I do use AI to score them, they came in with their glows and grows, and my students worked one-on-one with them in order to help them understand what are the glows, what did you do really great, what are the grows, some things that now they're doing in 4th grade that they learned in 3rd grade that will help the 3rd graders be better writers, and really just sitting in partnerships in collaboration with them in order for them to understand and realize, learning from a peer, how they can now become better writers from their own peers in 4th grade. I have to tell you that I know you were in the room as well, Jeanine, but it's just I'm always in awe when my students become those leaders in class, because they really truly take on the role seriously, and they show so much knowledge through their conversations of what they learned. And I always say, if you can teach something, you've learned it. So to switch to switch that for the 4th graders to now be working with the 3rd graders, I saw leaders in my class that sometimes are not necessarily leaders, that step up because they just love that chance to shine and lead and tell students, what tricks work for them and what they do. I actually had a student who came up and started teaching off of my anchor chart. So it was amazing to see just that peer collaboration. It works. It's something that truly should be done more, because students teaching other students, just all around, for both the teachers and the learners, it's just an amazing collaboration.
Yes, absolutely. And it truly was a fabulous moment. I can say, I was able to observe a portion of that activity. And one student turned to another student and was, reviewing the glows and said, it shows here that you write on topic. But one thing you need to work on is elaboration. And then she said, do you know what elaboration is? And, when the student didn't know, she was like, well, let me tell you about MMM, make it your own. Like, what does it mean? Why does it matter? And guiding the student through those thinking questions, again, pulling out her own notebook to show examples of it. It just showed such confidence and command of the organizational structure and the thinking um, scaffolds that they're using. So it was truly a fabulous moment. So very nice to see. And
Yeah.
speaking of leadership, I think my fabulous moment is along the same lines. I thought it was truly a fabulous moment in our PDP group yesterday afternoon, having teachers come in and just, you were leading that session, Robyn, and you were building in a space for teachers to share some of the things that they had done. And, as I always say, if building leaders stop talking long enough to let their teachers really share what they're doing in class, you'll find that there are so many um, people taking risks, trying out ideas, and demonstrating leadership in their classrooms. So to gather together as a school community and have them, how did you phrase it? To share and to steal, right? To share,
Yes, our last 10 minutes after we kind of worked on our data collection, my favorite part, share and steal.
yes,
So this way, you walk around, you talk to other teachers. What did they do? You steal their ideas because guess what? What somebody's doing in one class might work in another class. And I love going around to, look in other teachers' classrooms and see what they're doing. It always amazes me when I go to sit in a teacher's classroom and I look around
yes.
and they get such great ideas. And that's kind of like what we did yesterday.
Yeah.
Share and steal each other's ideas.
Yeah, but I 100% agree with that. That's a wonderful time for teachers to share the ideas that they're trying out in class, and you can steal from other teachers, their fabulous thoughts. And yeah, I just love seeing that, and I think it's such a prime example of what we talk about every week. This idea of learning something yourself, teaching it to others, and leading the way. So um,
Yeah.
yeah,
And through that, and through this initiative that we've started, Learn, Teach, Lead, I see, in my colleagues, other teachers now stepping up and wanting to lead and go teach other teachers the same thing. And they're so proud of their work. So
yeah,
that's truly the full circle moment when you have somebody else, come to you and say, and I shared it with you this morning after the meeting yesterday. I got a message and it said, sometimes the greatest PD is the teacher down the hall. And, and,
absolutely.
and that's the truth.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And I think we're very lucky in this district. We have lots of teachers who have a huge skill set, a lot of passion. They're reflective in their instructional practice. So if we could tap into that, I mean, it's a tremendous resource. So yes, that amazing professional development just very well may be happening down the hall or right next door, or you don't have to outsource it to some sort of outside consultant. But
Okay, well, today we're going to flip the script a little bit. And Ms. Nostrom, as a principal, how do you recognize teacher leadership potential, especially in teachers who may not see themselves as leaders yet?
sure. Well, one thing that you can recognize in potential teacher leaders right away, in my opinion, is their enthusiasm for teaching, right? Usually, people who are willing or capable of being a teacher leader are the ones who have a lot of enthusiasm and passion for what they do. Obviously, in order to convince other people that what you're doing is worth trying out, or presenting yourself as knowledgeable or having some sort of expertise, or even just being a learner, you can't be a person who's burnt out and tired and has a negative attitude, right? Because that's not the type of energy that inspires leadership among your colleagues. So I think enthusiasm and passion are number one. I also think that in teacher leaders, they really do need to have not just a reflective thought process, but a reflective practice. So I'm not just thinking about, oh, well, I wish I had done that differently, but going back and trying it again and being very intentional about the changes that they're making and what they're learning from it, and how it's impacting kids, right? Is the work that I'm doing making a difference in the classroom? And if so, to what extent and in what way? So I think those are things that I look for, or that I notice. I don't necessarily run around looking for teacher leaders. I just try and notice them as they happen and as they evolve, and then, encourage them to step forward into that role. I'd also add to that that teacher leaders tend to have good people skills. They like other people, they enjoy sharing, they get excited when other people have success. So it's not just all about, how things are going for them, but how things are going for others. And I think that's a certain personality characteristic as well.
Absolutely, for sure. But and what do you think, like, what conditions need to be in place before teacher leadership can really thrive for teachers?
Yeah. Well, I think you have to have a community where people are used to talking about things. So the building leader needs to make some space, whether it's at faculty meetings or grade level meetings, or just giving teachers time to talk about things, or even if they talk about things without you as the building leader, but then they come in to tell you, you need to listen, make the time to listen to what they have to say, and reflect on it, and just get that conversation going, right? So it's got to be a collaboration and conversation. The other thing is to establish trust, because whenever you ask someone to lead something, that's kind of risky. They're stepping out of their comfort zone. They're stepping in front of other people to demonstrate something that they know, and there's a certain element of risk to that. So it needs to be an environment where people feel like, okay, well, if this doesn't go so well, it's still okay. We're all learning. So I think those are some important conditions that need to be in place.
And you're so good at that, always making time to listen to all of your teachers. So, I I definitely agree that that feeling of support needs to be there for the teachers so that they feel that, you know, it is a doable initiative to undertake. But with, different kind of layers of pressure on, and obviously any job, a teaching job, specifically, we have a lot to do during the day.
Mm.
How do you support leaders without turning it into like another thing to do during the day, another kind of added layer of pressure for that teacher? Like, how would you kind of support and like turn that leadership into not another thing on their plate?
Right. Um, I have a little bit of a different perspective on pressure. I actually think pressure is a little bit of a good thing. It just can't be too much pressure that people feel overwhelmed or stressed, or, but a little bit of pressure. I even know in my own life, like, a deadline is very, very helpful to me. A little bit of like, ooh, my boss is going to see this is a good thing for me, because it I don't know, it creates that sense of urgency. It creates a sense of seriousness. So, um, I guess why I'm sharing that is it's a fine line for leaders to figure out with their own personality style and leadership style, and the personalities of their teachers, like, what's just the right amount of pressure, right? A little bit of urgency, a little bit of excitement, a little bit of like time, time bound tasks is okay, as long as it doesn't overwhelm the teacher. But we also have to be honest about the fact that teachers are pretty much running at maximum capacity, most of the time. So you have to be very careful about when you ask teachers to do things. Like, maybe in the midst of conference season isn't the best time to launch a new initiative, right? Um, Thinking about a timeline. So teachers like to be able to plan ahead. They love to be able to mull things over during the summer. They like to have time to talk to one another, kick ideas around, let ideas marinate. Um, you know, do a little experimentation in their own classes, dip their big toe in and see how the water is feeling. If you can give teachers the time to do that, I think that helps with pressure. But I wouldn't advise anyone in a leadership role to try and eliminate pressure, completely. But, there's some truth to the fact that, like, teachers can get to their breaking point, because there are many, many little details that teachers need to attend to. And so I think that, you don't want teachers to feel like it's another layer of pressure, But what alleviates that is when they see that it's yielding results. It's
Mhm.
either saving them time or having some real significant impact on their students' work.
Yeah. And I feel like it's, I was always the one that was studying the night before the exam. Speaking of, like, I was like, okay, this is a deadline. We got to go. So I like deadlines just like you. I like to know, when I need to get something done by that day.
Right.
But I also feel like I agree with you. Number one, the timing, again, we have different timing, conference times, report card times, things like that. But I also love the fact that you said that, that layer of pressure yields the accomplishment of what we do every day. And that's to see the results that the students have. But, I mean, people talk about teachers burnout all the time. It's a hot new topic of, there's a lot going on during a day. I think I saw a meme that said, when you go home from teaching, and your family asks you a question, it's now the 756,000th of the day.
Yeah.
And that's the
Yeah.
truth. You have, 23 students asking you things at all times of the day, and you don't know what they're going to ask you. So your mind is constantly going.
Right.
But how do you encourage leadership while protecting those teachers from experiencing that overload, or what they call like a burnout kind of,
Yeah.
situation?
I think building leaders would be wise not to force feed teacher leadership initiatives, right? Like if someone really doesn't want to do it, if they're not, you can encourage someone to step forward, but if they don't want to, I wouldn't drag them into that. It needs to be something that the teacher is truly stepping forward and saying, yeah, I'll give this a try. And I've tried it both ways, kind of saying, you're in charge of this now. And teachers, they're hardworking, they're diligent, they are professional. So, yeah, they step forward and do it. But it never really has the same sparkle as
Yeah.
it does when somebody is like, stepping forward of their own accord. It wasn't assigned to them. So we have an expression in this district that I think a consultant shared with us that people can volunteer or they can be voluntold. And there are times when we have time pressures and everything, and we do this voluntold. You've been voluntold that you're in charge of this, but it really works better when people volunteer. So to protect teachers from burnout. I think if they have the enthusiasm and passion that spurs them to step forward, I think that protects them from burnout. And then going back to something that you just said, when they're seeing the results, that inspires and energizes you. So when it's working for your kids, well, that's exciting. And that's the reward of all of the hard work. So, pursuing initiatives that are truly leading to meaningful results. And you only know that if you measure the results, right? Um,
Right.
so I think that's an important part too, to stop every once in a while and weigh the baby and say, all right, how are we doing here?
Yeah. And I think, you've been doing such a great job at that this year with, our PLC and our PDP initiatives, because we are coming together and saying, is it working? Is it not? Is it doable? And do we want to continue this, whatever it is, with looking at data, and how do we kind of now fine tweak that into, okay, we've done the personalized pathways, but now let's start looking at whole class trends moving forward into the second half of the year. So just looking at those results happening, isn't it energizes people? And I could tell you firsthand, I see it energizing people.
Right.
So those pressures, when we see that, those accomplishments coming and it's really working, that's the energy that's around that initiative. And it's great for people to collaborate and see that and feel that.
Right.
So
And another example, I'm just thinking of, when we met with one team of teachers this week, or was it last week? I don't know. It's sort of all blurring together. But we had initially thought we were going to do strategy groups across the grade level. But when we looked at the data, the kids really weren't ready for that. And we could see the look on the teacher's face. They're like, wait a minute, what? I'm supposed to, what? And it was like, this is too much right now. Like, we're
mhm.
not quite at that step. So I think it was wise to pull back and say, if they're not ready, then let's not move forward to this next step. We know where we're going. It's just not the right time at this moment. And you could almost feel the collective like, sigh in the room, like, okay, it's okay to be where we are right now. Because to pretend that, oh, we're ready to do this next step, I think would have just increased the pressure and made the teachers feel defeated, when really it's just, when you're on a diet, some weeks you gain weight, some
Yeah.
weeks you
So,
lose weight, some weeks you gain weight.
right.
And that's kind of how it goes with progress. So, I think that's an important piece of helping teachers avoid burnout, to be attuned to what's really going on for them as they go day to day to try and implement an initiative.
Yeah, absolutely. What's something you've learned over time about cultivating teacher leadership?
Again, inviting teachers to share how it's going, building that time for people to talk. Um, if something is working in somebody's classroom, that's the best place to start. Another place to start if something's not working, if the teacher has their personality type where they're very open and interested in hearing what other teachers have to say, maybe sharing what's not going so well, sometimes that's a great place to start as well. So
And you've been in this business a long time.
yeah.
What
Yes, I
advice?
have.
Yes, and you are an expert at being a leader. And we are also honored to learn from you every day. But what advice would you give to other building leaders?
um, I think the number one thing is to stay focused on the impact that it's having on students, right? So I think one mistake that leaders will often make is they will hang on to an initiative regardless of whether it's yielding any positive results, because this is what we decided we were going to do. And I think that, the teachers are in the classrooms day in, day out, they're in the trenches. So you need to listen to them, ask thoughtful questions, not let up on something if it's not working right away, but invite the teachers in early to give their feedback, name different strengths and weaknesses of whatever it is that you're experimenting with, and stay focused on how is it really yielding the results that you want it to yield. And if not, listen to those expert practitioners in the classroom and make adjustments as we go along. That is harder to do when the initiative is coming from outside of your independent school, right? So if I get an idea of something I want to try here at Ridge Ranch, right? It's a lot easier for me to kind of shift gears as opposed to there is a district level initiative and it's this broad thing and now we all have to figure out how to make it work, because I don't, as the building leader, I can't make a district initiative go away, nor would I want to. It's a district initiative, right? But then I have to find the best way to meet the district goals and make it fit for our kids, make it fit for our teachers, make it fit in our schedule, within our resources and all of that. So that's a bigger challenge. So that's why I love little building initiatives. We find what works for us, we name it, we figure it out, we work on it together, as opposed to, oh, we're implementing a whole new science program. We already, we bought it for the district. It was a district decision. Sure, we had collaboration, but I didn't pick it for our school. So,
Yeah.
and that's just the way it is, right? And that's not a bad thing. It's just a little bit of an extra challenge for leaders who are shepherding initiatives, whether it's a district-wide initiative or a building initiative.
And again, you're like an expert and so wonderful at this, because I remember when 2 years ago the AI initiative was coming down, into the school systems, and we were trying to all kind of forge our pathway through this, right? You said, and I remember you saying this, if it's not going to help us, if it's not going to help our students succeed, if it's not going to be something that's doable, then why do we do it? So
Hmm.
we have to ask ourselves as we navigate through these AI models and we're kind of inputting student data, is it worth it? Because if it's not worth it, then why are we wasting our time? Now, we found that it was really worth it in our district because our scores went up so much and our students are wonderful writers, and now they're teaching other grades about their writing. So all in all, it is. But I remember you asking that question, like you truly put students at the center, and you truly support the teachers who are helping the students and looking at different strategies to teach them and to model good practices with them. So I feel being a leader is so multifaceted. Like, you have your students, you have your community, you have your teachers, you have your stakeholders, and that's a lot of people to navigate all of, through these waters with.
Right.
But you make it look like it's easy. It's not true.
Well, thank you. One thing I will say is that the question that I feel like I need to be able to answer for teachers is when they come to me and say, "Why am I doing this?" And sometimes that will happen with new assessments. Like teachers will be giving a new assessment and they're like, "Why am I doing this? I'm not getting anything out of this." And so then it's kind of our role to say, "Well, you're doing it because we need that data for a specific person, a purpose. We need to look at this data in another way, or why aren't we getting the information that we need out of the data?" So teachers don't have time to waste. So they resent when they have to do something that's not either saving them time or yielding some sort of positive, growth for their students. So that's a big challenge. Um, I think it's just a challenge in general whenever you're trying to launch a new initiative.
Yeah. And the bottom line is that we deal with people. Like we deal with actual people. So the results have to be yielded. They have to be correct.
Right.
Because we're not dealing with, building machines in our business. We're dealing with people's lives and the future of people, of our students. So those are definitely questions. And we've seen, going back to the PLC and the PDP, I think that's why so many people are excited, because they see the results happening. They're seeing the progress happening. So those
Yeah.
are great questions to ask.
Yeah.
Should we leave listeners with some practical takeaways?
Yes, I think that's a good idea. I definitely think that one of the things that we can share with people about leading building initiatives is to look for leadership that's already in practice. Like you don't have to go and ask somebody to step forward. Just look for little pockets of it. Who's in charge of what, right? When you have a question about, something, who do all the teachers turn to? And you can kind of see where teachers are pursuing their passion, or where they have areas of confidence, that they have special expertise, and then just as a principal try and encourage that and build in opportunities for them to step forward as leaders in those areas. I'd also say that another thing building leaders can do from like a practical standpoint is just try and preserve time for collaboration. I can't always do it, but I try as much as possible to create common preps in this building schedule so teachers have time to get together and talk shop and plan together and help one another. I think that's another important thing. And then hmm, I would say just stay focused on student results or teacher usefulness, and that should be the litmus test for whether or not you even want leadership in an area, right? We don't want people stepping forward to help everybody spin their wheels. We want people stepping forward to yield positive results. So
Amazing. Thank you so much, Miss Nostrom.
you are very welcome.
And you know
And
what the old clock on the wall tells us?
it looks like it is time for another episode of Learn, Teach, Lead, our Friday debrief, to come to an end. We've shared a few lessons and unpacked a few stories and maybe sparked a few ideas for your classroom or your leadership journey.
As always, we hope you'll take what you learned, teach it forward, and lead with purpose. Thanks for spending part of your week with us. We'll see you next time.
Bye.